And buzzing confusion which the infant experiences is the same world we're looking at right now, except that the infant has no language for it. Now, the interesting thing about the DMT thing is you have no language for it. That's interesting point number one. Interesting point number two, somebody arrives on the scene eager to provide language. That's suggestive. So it seems like what they're saying is, we've stamped your passport, you're over the border, but no one here speaks English, so if you want to make yourself understood, please pick up the local lingo, Johnny Pronto, and in fact we've assigned a team teaching group. The feeling of the DMT thing, and this is why I entertain the possibility that it might be anticipation of death. What happens when you smoke DMT is there's an initial kind of handshaking confusion, like when two computers meet and exchange protocols. There's a 30-second period where everything sort of gets sorted out, and this thing forms like a mandala. I call it the chrysanthemum, and it's a rotating orange-yellow floral circular mandala thing. If you have not taken enough, it is a kind of rubberized membrane or something. If you haven't taken enough, you'll hit it and bounce off and have this really ambiguous period, just kind of confusion which slowly goes away. But if you've taken enough, and the key to taking enough, and here comes a piece of practical advice that may be worth more than the entire workshop. The way to get off on DMT is after you feel completely peculiar, you have to do one more enormous hit. This is where courage comes in. Most people, they take it and they say, it's working, this stuff feels really weird, it's really working. They say, do one more hit. And they say, no, it's working. They say, no, do one more hit. So then you do, or we say you do. You penetrate that membrane and you go through a series of to me it's like a ramp, but it's like a series of diastolic compressions that push me forward. Birth canal analogy, obviously. And then I break into the elf dome, or the hive, as I call it. And certain intuitions accompany this without any rationale. And one is, I'm underground. This place is warm, it's domed, it's reasonably well lit, but there's enormous weight above my head. I'm far under the earth somehow. Fairies, as we all know, live under hills. So then I'm there, and the elves and the elf machines and the language lesson are proceeding, but if I can stabilize and calm my hysteria so that I can maintain some kind of objectivity, I notice that really the place I break into is somebody very odd, someone very strange. It's their idea of a reassuring environment for a human being. Somebody who doesn't know very much about human beings, but who's really trying hard, built this terrarium of arrival. And it has the aura of a maternity ward. And I've thought, these self-transforming elf machines, which I take so seriously and try to make the basis for a new ontology, they could be nothing more profound than those plastic shapes that we hang over a baby's bassinet to teach it to coordinate space and color. In other words, what those things are is they're educational toys. They aren't the main clan. They're not in charge of the hospital. They're just something dumped in your arrival playpen to keep you happy while the doctors make the observation. And the doctors never appear. And the whole thing is pervaded with a wonderful affection and zaniness. It's completely life-affirming. I have no patience with alien abduction or any of that. I think that's pathology. I think it's media-damaged people manipulated by incredibly unscrupulous New Age weirdos. There is no paranoia in this. It's entirely positive, although very, very weird. The main thing is hard to understand. What's this all for, you know? Maybe you thought you were going to have an insight into your relationship or resolve your hatred of your father, and instead you're playing canasta with elves. Yeah. Not very. It's always the same. The emphasis is on imitating the language. And
so you don't sense that there's a breakthrough point beyond that. As you've mentioned, passing through the membrane, getting into this environment. Now you're in this environment, the exchange is taking place. You're dealing with it on a rudimentary basis, but you don't have any perception that there's an increase.
Well, the problem is the brevity. We very quickly figured this out back in the 60s. You only get 3 minutes. It's like, visiting the American Museum of Natural History for 3 minutes. So what we really need was an extender. And that was why we went to the Amazon in the first place, was because ayahuasca from the anthropological literature sounded like it was the extender. And in fact, if you brew it stiff enough, it is, and you can get in there for quite a while. But it doesn't become particularly more rationally apprehendable. It's a great mystery. It's a puzzle. It shouldn't exist. It's the thing which you don't believe exists. It does.
It's a crazy idea. You're talking about elves, I'm feeling about Santa Claus. And flying with a sled, having a red-nosed reindeer and seeing him die. Reindeer's eating mushrooms. So
Well, you want me to extend your list for you? Santa Claus's colors are red and white. Santa Claus is associated with the spruce tree. The spruce tree is the mycorrhizal symbiote of the Amanita. The Amanita is associated with magical flight. Santa Claus flies. The Amanita is associated with reindeer. He flies with the aid of reindeer. He makes gifts for all the boys and girls in the world with the help of elves. Elves, in all traditions, are what are called demon artificers. They make things. That's what elves do. Whether it's shoes or gold jewelry, or they make things. Elves are artificers. Now, what else before I leave this theme? Santa Claus lives at the North Pole. The North Pole is the Axis Mundi, the Yggdrasil, the magic world ash of Norse shamanism grows at the North Pole. You pile all this stuff up and you say, this has got to be an ancient memory of an Amanita cult. Although I've looked at Santa Claus, and I have never found a source that would trace it back further than the 10th century. But I maintain, it's Paleolithic problem. Yeah.
The probability of finding a new tryptamine that you weren't aware of that extends the trip.
Sasha, is now working on the tryptamines, and I asked him in Mexico, I said, of all of these tryptamines you've elaborated, which ones are the most interesting? I can't remember the one he named, but it was a synthetic. He said it was extending. There's a certain, I don't know if fear is the word, but these places are really strange. And for most people, 3 minutes is quite enough, and then they need to attempt to assimilate it. Part of the problem is you can't remember it. I mean, I've seen people smoke DMT, give all the presentation of intoxication, come down, lie still, and when you say, what happened? They say, nothing happened. Nothing at all happened. And furthermore, I think I won't be seeing too much of you in the future. In fact, I'm sure of it. So, yeah.
Possibility of sort of the analog of going to the gym before going out to a sports activity. That one practices remembering dreams or trying to experience the weirdest, sober things possible in order to have like the most stamina in the altered state.
Isn't the dream itself the images of language? I mean, isn't there a form of aren't your images communicating something to you through images?
You mean in a normal dream?
There's the citizens of the dream.
Yes.
And they, depending upon, whether you're visual or auditory or whatever, they're communicating to you as well. So you're watching, you're observing and participating and feeling, and you're getting messages at the same time.
Well, and the dream world itself is very bizarre. I have recurrent dreams. A lot of my dreams are recurrent, and I had an experience recently. I was having a recurrent dream, and it was basically I was in a restaurant, and this guy was taking my order, and as I looked at him, I realized I had seen him before in a dream. And I said, I've seen you before, but it's been a long, long time. And he said, yeah, well, I went to Alaska and worked the salmon boats for a while, but now I'm back. It's like, So,
Challenges like that because they're always interacting with the same sources. They're getting new ones, but they're interacting with power sources.
that's right, yeah.
When you're talking about the images that you're describing, what happens to my understanding is it sounds like these are the keepers of the patterns of life, in a sense. They're the keepers of the DNA, or when something comes into life, a species or a species exits life, there is a gathering up of the patterns. The life itself, we don't understand that realm or that form, but maybe in this altered state that we get to go into and see what it's like to gather up patterns and like I said, illustrate to us how the patterns, because it's kind of like it's a joyous thing, life in itself, and that the keepers would be something.
Well, imagine how astonishing it would be if we could confirm that there was something beyond death, and that in fact it was not only there was something, but whatever this something was actually looking back at us. I was raised Catholic and took a lot of time to deconstruct this kind of stuff. It did not seem to me rationally supportable. But actually that's in the light of a fairly simple rationalism. Now I look at nature, and everywhere what I see is that nature conserves novelty. This is something you'll hear me say many times. In other words, once nature achieves some structure, she is very reluctant to let it go. Life is an example. Life was achieved more than 1 billion years ago. And through asteroid cataclysm and polar reverse and solar dynamic, it is tenaciously held on. So it may be that this thing which we call the personality, the self, is actually of interest to nature as a complex structure, and that it really does use the physical body as a kind of workbench upon which to build a higher dimensional vehicle.